rights, you usually don't get them back unless you burn everything down and start from scratch.
Yeah, just woke up. Play some of this.
So
News.
Bro,
President Biden sided with big business and has urged Congress to intervene to block rail workers from going on strike, saying it could devastate the economy. On Monday, Biden asked lawmakers to quickly pass legislation to impose a labor deal that's been opposed by the majority of freight rail workers. In a statement, Biden said, quote, "As a proud pro-labor president, I'm reluctant to override the ratification procedures and the views of those who voted against the agreement. But in this case, where the economic impact of a shutdown would hurt millions of other working people and families, I believe Congress must use its powers to adopt this deal," Biden said. Many union activists criticized Biden's move to block a strike. Ron Kaminko, a locomotive engineer and organizer for Railroad Workers United, spoke to Democracy Now! Last night.
so unfortunately, the most labor-friendly president, quote unquote, we've ever had, basically has opted to side with the Class 1 carriers, Class 1 rail carriers, because he had the opportunity, and he's had that opportunity since this whole debacle began, to basically urge, coax, cajole, and otherwise badger and bully the rail carriers into meeting what are very, very modest demands of rank and file railroad workers. And in his latest request here to Congress to legislate us basically back to work before we even had a chance to strike, under the terms and conditions of the tentative agreement, which is not very popular with the rank and file. We have unions that represent 55% of rail labor have voted this contract down. And so we could have seen Biden actually opt for telling Congress he would like to see Congress pass legislation that mediates an end to the conflict, under which more favorable terms to the workers, which is to say a handful of sick days. And that's what this has come down to. Railroad workers traditionally have had no sick time. And now with the very, very harsh attendance policies that we're faced with, railroad workers get very, very little time off work. And it has come to a crunch point. We're seeing workers leaving the industry in droves, in numbers never, ever believed possible. People with 15 and 20 years seniority are leaving the industry. And there's a crisis out there. And I don't believe the Biden administration quite understands the depth of this crisis. And I don't think they understand that they could have actually taken an approach that would have benefited rail labor and potentially benefited the rail industry itself. Instead, unfortunately, the president is urging Congress to basically legislate an agreement based upon what he brokered along with Marty Walsh, Secretary of Labor, 2 months ago. But the rank and file have made it very clear that they are not content with this contract that simply does not address the quality of work-life issues.
This all comes as profits soar for the freight rail industry, which has reduced the rail workforce by 30% over the last 6 years.
Since I entered the industry more than a quarter century ago, I have watched as the rail industry has made record profits. The operating ratio when I hired in, I believe, was somewhere in the mid-80s. It dropped into the 70s, 60s. The rail industry is hell-bent on achieving a 0.50 operating ratio, and who knows where they might even want to go from there. Stock buybacks has reached record proportion. The dividends that have been paid out to stockholders are enormous. Warren Buffett was, for one, who bought BNSF outright a decade ago, will state unequivocally that his investment has paid off to him way more than he even expected it to. The wealth that has been accumulated by these rail carriers over the last quarter century, while they have moved less freight than they did 16 years ago, shippers from practically every major shipping group that ships by rail is in a state of total discontent. They have complained vociferously to the Surface Transportation Board, demanding better service. the rail industry has gouged their customers. They've shed themselves of about a third of their employees in the last 6 years. And they've basically pissed off just about everybody in the country except for their stockholders. And now we come down to the wire in contract negotiations where literally what separates the parties is a handful of sick time that most workers actually have achieved decades and decades ago, but railroad workers have traditionally gone without. And we finally have said enough is enough. We want a handful of sick days, and yet the rail carriers see fit to dig in their heels. These Fortune 500 companies who have made, like I say, record profits these last 25 years and refuse to give us anything. And unfortunately, the Biden administration is incapable of siding unequivocally with us as the most labor-friendly president ever. We would have expected that from him. So there's a lot of upset and a lot of discontent right now amongst the working railroaders.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. So this is not a small deal. This is a big deal, I would say, for
it's a real big deal
for a whole bunch of reasons. He said something I wanted to fucking comment on. What was it? He said so much. Freaking they making so much money. They're doing the stock buybacks. They're doing this lean where it's like everybody's on call the whole time. Everybody's stressed out because it's fewer people working, you know. Oh, this is what I wanted to say. Freaking people, because they don't teach history properly, and they don't teach history properly. These people don't even know how much trouble it went through to get us to have a 5-day work week, weekends off, and 8-hour work days. People died. It was riots and you know, people died for us to have the work week that we have now, with the little vacation time or whatever it is that we have now. The companies never wanted to give that to the people. They had to fight. They had to fight.
Look, you know, I agree with that, but on the other side of this, you're also got to understand, they're picking the month before the holiday season, the busiest time of the year, to do this. They are using strong arm tactics.
These negotiations have been going on like all year. They've been going back and forth. I can go back. I know it's been at least like 6 months. At least 6 months.
Well, see, there's been a lot added, a lot taken away, a bunch, because they started out with a whole lot more demands, and all of a sudden now they're saying, oh, well, it's just about a few sick days. It's been about a whole lot more the whole time.
Yeah, well, they're screwing over these people clearly. So, and then the thing is,
they're giving the message, oh, it's just about sick days, and he won't give us more sick days. And while I agree, well, first of all, the president should not be frigging involved in labor negotiations.
That's it right there. And that's what I'm trying to get to, because then,
that's an overreach of the executive office.
Doesn't that sound like totalitarianism? You know, the only power that the workers have is their
we're under a democratic government. We're in a dictatorship now. We are told what to think, what to speak, and if we go against that, we are disappeared or we are removed from society with cancel culture.
And they've squashed all the major unions, and this union right here is actually pretty strong with the trains. The trains unions, they're pretty damn strong, and so the damn government had to stomp them out. So they couldn't have no power. So the people, the workers, the regular folks, no power.
Yeah. Well,
go to work. Shut up.
My whole thing is
he's just trying to keep the supply chain open during the Thanksgiving holiday, during this week, the next couple of months. When it comes to when it's all over, he's going back away and not want to have anything to do with it and let them do all the negotiations they want, because that way he can't get blamed for screwing up everybody's holiday.
I can't give him a pass on this. Fuck, screw that. You know, the holiday's gonna come back around. Whatever. These companies just made a freaking whole bunch of money out of COVID. I don't feel sorry for them.
But that's the whole thing.
Prices just to freaking just because they can as a result of this COVID situation. No,
you know what?
Crashing in for 2 years.
There'd also be more trains and stuff open if they hadn't canceled that pipeline, because now Rupert Murdoch, who owns most of the trucks and the trains carrying that oil, is the one making all that money instead of the pipeline.
And it's a lot going on with that because, you know, Europe is starting to get mad. France is getting upset. Y'all charging us extra freaking money.
Well, we blew up the Ukrainian pipeline because Russia, remember I said they were going in there to take that pipeline? Well, you notice we blew up that pipeline, but they still took that because they were coming in. They were going to take that territory, and we blew it up.
And now,
excuse me, it's not official. It's rumored amongst conspiracy theorists that a special covert team went in and blew it up.
And now Europe is getting their stuff from us. We're selling it, but it has to be shipped, and the price is high as hell.